Welcome to the Ramble Christian Podcast, where we start with the psalm and end with the proverb. We'll discuss current culture and Christian news, with some politics muddled in there, the more than occasional infighting, some heretic buffeting, and to keep us in the habit of remembering a biblical perspective, we will spend some time in the book or theme from the Bible. This is episode 4, and it's a very special episode. We're going to delve into the conspiracies on this one. And important random ones and very important found out ones. It's a special episode. So join me and bust out your own foil hat. We'll be in Proverbs 2 and Psalms 2. And we're going to be spending some time in the end portion of Job. It's one of the best. It's one of the best omes in the world. When God comes down and is like, who are you? Do you feed the little baby dinosaurs? Where were you when I set the earth and I told the sea you could come here, but you can't come any further? Yeah. So anyways, buckle up. Psalm 2. Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord, Yahweh, and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder, and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill in Zion. Of Zion I will declare the decree the Lord hath said unto me, thou art my son. This day I have begotten thee. That's the Jesus. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about my Jesus. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance. That's me. I'm the heathen. Yay. And the utmost parts of the earth for thy possessions. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O you kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. Amen. Put your trust in Jesus every single day. And that means for everything. That means for your job. That means for what tomorrow's going to bring. That means for your court appearance tomorrow. That means for who's going to be president. Whatever it may be, do not grumble or complain. Just put your trust in the Lord and he'll see you through. The other portion about this that I really like is God has a sense of humor. The idea, he sits on the edge of the earth and he laughs. He laughs at his haters because he sees their end. This isn't the only time he laughs at them. There's another portion in either Psalms or Proverbs. We'll get there eventually. Okay, so this portion is what brought about our conspiracy special episode. So I ran across this temple video over the weekend, and it was like just, oh man, that's the best right there. This kind of conspiracy stuff, the who's the Antichrist, it was great. It was a great podcast. He lasts like an hour. But you see this gentleman right here. I keep wanting to call him Chad, but I think his name is Chase. I'm not sure. He can be found on the Whatever podcast, flexing his muscles and flirting with Kiki, I think her name is. I don't watch Whatever podcast anymore. It's too awful, honestly. But I've watched a couple episodes. Now, I'm pretty sure this guy was part of the alt-right back in the day. I'm pretty sure the whole entire Whatever podcast crew is. And I'm just saying that because I caught a couple things, couple vibes. There's familiar vibes when you hang around certain groups. Do you know what I mean? And there was like a tell. Maybe I've caught like this guy in particular with like 3 tells. And I'm like, But anyways, do we still love him? Of course we do. We love everyone. So today's episode, we're going to break down. It's like an inception. It's like a conspiracy inception. So they're talking about whether or not Trump is the Antichrist or Elon Musk is the Antichrist. Which, yeah, that's the stuff right there. You're going to think anyone of today is going to be, it's those two, right? I remember the first time I heard Elon Musk on Joe Rogan, I was like, that man wants to put a chip in my brain. Oh, all those Christian movies warned me about this in the 90s. Anyways, there are 2 parts of the video that I thought were very interesting. So if you know anything about conspiracies, which I do, I love conspiracies. Like someone would love a good sci-fi movie, right? Some of them I believe. Some of them I hold in the space of maybe. And then, you delve too far and you get into like the Alex Jones, they're lizard people under the ground. That's my floor. I get off before that area. That I don't go in that area. But how did Alex Jones become like a reputable? I'm telling you the truth. Like I when I broke my spine when I was 27, almost like 10 years ago, and I was hopped up on painkillers, and this is around the time I actually discovered the internet. It was like 2012. I didn't really know the internet was there before. I just thought like you got recipes from this place. I didn't know how amazing it was. And I find YouTube and I go down these conspiracy rabbit trails. And I mean, they were amazing. These stories that were being woven, especially the ones involving Hollywood, MK Ultra, mind control with the celebrities. People would break down videos of like music videos, and it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, you can't really, like, there's definitely Masonic involvement here, right? At the very least, these people are part of some kind of Messianic club or some secret club, right? Like, it doesn't have to get so into the weeds. There's something going on. That's why they cover their eye and all that stuff. So anyways, if you know anything about conspiracies, you should know there's two things. For one, there's predictive programming, there's culture creation, right? Predictive programming is where they ingest into some kind of media things that they're going to do as a way to prepare you for it to happen. So like with The Simpsons, predicting the future. What it might probably be is that the creator of The Simpsons was actually part of the Masons. And he was getting people's subconscious ready. Just like how now you're hearing all the talk about Barron Trump being the next president, or being the vice president, or maybe he'll be the one that rules later. This is part of that predictive programming in the alt-right. They're getting you ready for it. So anyways, and I actually get into it in this, which is funny because you should watch the podcast because it's pretty good. But anyways, so so there's that, but there's also this aspect that possibly the occult has to tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Like it's some kind of unspoken rule. They have to talk about it. They have to tell. And if go venture on that rabbit trail on YouTube, because there's a lot of examples of this. So what I found interesting is a couple portions in this video where this guy Chase, I think that's his name, he like for an extended period of time did the eye thing, where it's almost like, well, hold on now, I got to keep it there for 2 more seconds. Wait, let's get the right angle there. It's like, She is constantly flaunting this Illuminati symbolism on magazine covers, and like if you've done your research on quote unquote conspiracy theories, like this is like the Freemasonic hand signal hand of sign? Like over the eye. It's a symbol of the all-seeing eye, basically. Yeah. Masonic symbolism. There's that. And then what really hit it at home was when he goes, this clip right here. This Novus Ordo Seclorum jacket, and to people who don't have eyes to see, to the uninitiated, he's just like, oh, like Illuminati, like I'm just joking around. But I look at that and I'm like, are you actually telling us who you are? Are you in part of the club and you're kind of signaling to us beforehand what's about to go down? That's what I want to know. So what? Okay, so he said, are you really telling us what you're really doing? Is that what this is? It's like, oh, that seemed to mirror what he's doing. Is he actually telling us these things? Is he the one that has to speak it before it happens? But remember, I got my tinfoil hat, so I'm allowed to be talking this crazy. You can't judge me. As long as the tinfoil hat's on, we're in the land of make-believe. Don't be sending the white coats to my house, okay? Okay, this is all entertainment right now. We're just joking. But it reminds me of when Trump was actually campaigning, and he told the story about the turtle and the snake. And there was just something about the way he told that story. I remember thinking, is he talking about himself? Because the way he said, the woman's like, why did you stab me? Or why did you bite me? And he goes, silly woman, I'm a snake. And I think like he was trying to indicate it was Hillary, but there was something about it that was very ominous. And I'm like, he's foretelling.
On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. Interesting. His pretty-colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. Oh, well, she cried, I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman. Sighed the vicious snake. She wrapped him up cozy in a curvature of silk, and then laid him by the fireside with some honey and some milk. Now she hurried home from work, and that night, as soon as she arrived, she found that pretty snake she'd taken and revived. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. Now she clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But if I hadn't brought you in, by now you might have died. She stroked his pretty skin, and then she kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. I saved you, cried the woman, and you've bit me. Heavens, why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. Does that make sense to anybody? Does that make any sense?
But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. As far as like making great boasts, though, especially against the Lord, like, especially when he was all like, I've never needed anyone. I never apologized for nothing. I've done nothing I need to apologize for. Like, that's not correct, sir. And you're in danger. You need to stop that thinking. Anyways, here's another portion that I did not appreciate. It's the way he said it one extra time.
Yes, and
absolutely.
I believe this is the great satanic lie that humanity will be told, which is that we can have eternal life through technology. You don't need Jesus Christ for it. We can create heaven on earth through technology. You don't need Jesus Christ for it. And this is exactly the kind of scenario that caused God to kick Adam and Eve out of the garden.
There, see, I did not like, it's like, to say it once should be hurtful to the heart. But it's like, why did you say it the second? Maybe he just didn't know, maybe he was just floundering in his speech, right? Or maybe, because if you know about conspiracies, one of the ways they get you is by repetitive talking points. In fact, that's why, you could search up the news, right? And you could see, like, they give the news people certain talking points. And there's videos that will show, like, newscasters from all across the country. And you could actually sync them up, word for word, whole sentences of them saying the exact same thing. Well, there are also other conspiracy videos out there that show certain themes that have been spoken throughout the years in children's entertainment. They're like the follow your heart, or like I don't know. I haven't been able to find a lot of these videos since YouTube, cracked down on the Wild West days of YouTube. But there's like these common tropes that were said over and over and over and over and over again, from all of the movies to the shows. And we are monkeys, basically. We hear something enough, we start to believe it's true. Sad. Anyways, Job 38. Then Yahweh answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee an answer. And answer thou me, where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut up the sea with doors, when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of the womb? When I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness a swaddling band for it, and break up for it my decreed place, and set bars and doors, and said, Here thou too shalt thou come, but no further, or here shall thou proud waves be stayed. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the dayspring to know its place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it? It is turned as clay to the seal, and they stand as a garment. And from the wicked their light is withholden, and the high arm shall be broken. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea? Or hast thou walked in the search of the death? Have the gates of death been opened unto thee? Or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare if thou knowest it all. Where is the way where light dwelleth? And as for darkness, where is the place thereof? That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and that thou shouldest know the paths to the house thereof. Knowest thou it? Because thou wast then born, or because the number of thy days is great? Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow? Or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war? But what way is the light parted, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? Who hath divided a water course for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lightning of thunder, to cause it to rain on the earth where no man is, on the wilderness wherein there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to spring forth? Hath thy rain a father? Or who hath begotten the drops of dew, out of whose womb came the ice, and the hoary frost of heaven? Who hath gendered it? That's a weird one. The waters are hid as with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth Meseroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, that abundance of waters may cover thee? Canst thou send lightning, that they may go and say unto thee, Here we are? Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts? Or who hath given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds in wisdom? Or who can say to the bottles of heaven, or who can stay the bottles of heaven, when the dust groweth into the hardness, and the clods cleave fast together? Wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion, or fill the appetite of the young lions, when they crouch in their dens and abide in the covert to lie in wait? Who provideth for the raven his food, when his young ones cry unto God? They wander for lack of meat. Knowest thou the time when the wild goats of the rock bring forth? Or canst thou mark when the hinds do cleave? Canst thou number the months that they fulfill? Or knowest thou the time when they bring forth? They bow themselves, they bring forth their young ones, they cast out their sorrows. The young ones are in good liking, they grow up with corn, they grow forth, and return not unto them. Who hath set out the wild ass free? Or who hath loosened the bands of the wild ass? It's not cursing, it's in the Bible. Whose house I have made the wilderness, and the barren lands his dwelling. He scorneth the multitude in the city, neither regardeth he the crying of the driver. The range of the mountains in his pasture, and he searcheth after every green thing. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee, or abide by thy crib? Canst thou bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow, or will he harrow the valleys after thee? Wilt thou trust him because his strength is great, or wilt thou leave thy labor to him? Wilt thou believe him that he will bring home thy seed, and gather it into thy barn? Gavest thou the godly wings unto the peacocks, or wings and feathers unto the ostrich, which leaveth her eggs in the earth, and warmeth them in dust, and forgetteth that thy foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them? She is hardened against her young ones, as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain without fear, because God hath deprived her of wisdom, neither hath he imparted to her understanding. What time she lifteth up herself on high, she scorneth the horse and his rider. Hast thou given the horse strength? Hast thou clothed his neck with thunder? Canst thou make him afraid as a grasshopper? The glory of his nostrils is terrible. He paweth in the valley, and rejoiceth in his strength. He goeth on to meet the armed men. He mocketh in fear, and is not afraid, and is not affrighted. Neither turneth he back from the sword. The quiver rattleth against him, the glittering spear and the shield. He swalloweth the ground with fierceness and rage. Neither believeth he that it is the sound of the trumpet. He saith among the trumpets, Ha ha! I smelleth the battle afar off, and the thunder of captains, and the shouting. Doth the hawk fly by thy wisdom, and stretch her wings toward the south? Doth the eagle mount up by thy command, and make her nest on high? She dwelleth and abideth on the rock, upon the crag of the rock, and the strong place. From thence she seeketh the prey, and her eyes behold afar off. Her young ones also suck up blood, and where the slain are, there is she. Moreover, the Lord answered Job and said, Shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? He that reproveth God, let him answer it. Then Job answered the Lord and said, Behold, I am vile. What shall I answer thee? I lay mine hand upon my mouth. Once I have spoken, I will not speak. I will not answer, twice, but I will proceed no further. Then answered the Lord, but I will not answer, twice, but I will proceed no further. Then answered the Lord unto Job out of the whirlwind and said, Gird up thy loins now like a man. I will demand of thee, and declare thee unto me. Wilt thou also disannul my judgment? Wilt thou condemn me? Thou that mightest be righteous? Thou mayest be righteous? Hast thou an arm like God? Or canst thou thunder with a voice like him? Deck thyself now with the majesty of excellency, and array thyself with glory and beauty. Cast abroad the rage of thy wrath, and behold every one that is proud and abase him. Look on every one that is proud and bring him low, and tread down the wicked in their place. Hide them in the dust together, and bind their faces in secret. Then will I also confess unto thee that thine own right hand can save thee. Behold now, Behemoth, which I made with thee, he eateth grass as an ox. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly. He moveth his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his stones are wrapped together. His bones are as strong pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. He is the chief of the ways of God. He that made him can make his sword to approach unto him. Surely the mountains bring him forth food, where all the beasts of the field play. He layeth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and fens. The shady trees cover him with their shadows. The willows of the brook compass him about. Behold, he drinketh up a river, and hasteth not. He trusteth that he can draw up the Jordan into his mouth. He taketh with his eyes, his nose pierceth through the snares. Canst thou draw Leviathan with an hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down? Canst thou put a hook in his nose, or bore his jaw through with a thorn? Will he make many supplications unto thee? Will he speak soft words unto thee? Will he make a covenant with thee? Wilt thou take him for a servant forever? Wilt thou play with him as with a bird? Or wilt thou bind him for thy maidens? Shall the companions make a banquet of him? Shall they part him among the merchants? Canst thou fill his skin with barbed irons, or his head with fish spears? Lay thine hand upon him. Remember the battle. Do no more. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? None is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? Who hath prevented me, that I should repay him? Whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. I will not conceal his parts, nor his power, nor his comely proportion. Who can discover the face of his garment, or who can come to him with his double girdle? Who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with a closed seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together, that they cannot sundered. By his nescings a light doth shine. His eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as of a smoke of a seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindle coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. In his neck remaineth strength, and sorrow is turned into joy before him. The flakes of his flesh are joined together. They are firm in themselves, they cannot be moved. His heart is as firm as a stone, as hard as a piece of the nether millstone. When he riseth up, the mighty are afraid. By reason of breaking they purify themselves. The sword of him that layeth at him cannot hold, the spear that dart, nor the habergeon. He esteemeth iron as straw, and brass as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Sling stones are turned with him unto stubble. Darts are counted as stubble. He laugheth at the shaking of a spear. Sharp stones are under him. He spreadeth sharp pointed things upon the mire. He maketh the deep to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a pot of ointment. He maketh a path to shine after him. One would think the deep to be I don't know what that is. Upon earth there is not his like. Who is made without fear? He beholdeth all high things. He is a king over all the children of pride. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee. Who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? Therefore I have uttered that I understood not, things not wonderful for me, things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. Hear, I beseech thee, and I will speak. I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye hath seen thee. Wherefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, that the Lord said to, and then there's some pleasantries. And also God restored Job's stuff. Anyways, I don't know why. That's one of my favorite parts of the Bible. It's just like such an epic viewing of the Lord. Anytime you have a problem with fearing God, just read that part. You could also read the part where he drug his prophet around by the hair. You know, just to keep things in perspective. He's love, but he throws down. All right. I did some AI venturings. I argued with AI today, and it was very fun. So I'm going to share it here. So I said, could stiff person syndrome be demonic possession? And Copilot said, stiff person syndrome is a rare chronic neurological disorder categorized by muscle stiffness and painful spasms. It's an autoimmune condition, meaning it results from the body's immune system mistakenly attacking its own tissues. The system can include muscle stiffness, spasms, difficulty walking, and they can worsen over time without treatment. While the symptoms of SPS can be severe and debilitating, it's important to understand that they are medical in nature. The idea of demonic possession is a cultural or religious interpretation of certain phenomena, not a clinical diagnosis. Modern medicine attributes the symptoms of SPS to neurological and autoimmune processes rather than supernatural causes. If you or someone you know is experiencing symptoms like those of stiff person syndrome, it's crucial to consult a healthcare professional for a proper diagnosis and treatment plan. They can provide support and management strategies to help improve quality of life. I said, have there been cases of illnesses that are similar to this disorder that may have been demonic possession? Copilot said, throughout history, various medical conditions with symptoms that were not understood at the time have sometimes been attributed to the supernatural causes, including demonic possession. However, with advancements in medical science, many of these conditions are now recognized as neurological or psychological in disorders. For example, conditions that can present with symptoms similar to stiff person syndrome, such as muscle stiffness and spasms, include multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, Parkinson's disease, motor neuron disease, and functional neurological disorder. These conditions are now understood to have medical explanations rather than supernatural ones. Historically, the lack of understanding of certain diseases often led to attributions of supernatural causes. For instance, the first patients with phenotype of classic stiff person syndromes were described in 1956, and since then our understanding of the condition has evolved significantly. It's important to note that what might have been considered demonic possession in the past would likely be diagnosed and treated as a medical condition today. If you're interested in historical perspective on illnesses and their cultural interpretation, it's a fascinating area of study that combines medicine, history, and anthropology. However, from a medical standpoint, conditions like SPS are approached with evidence-based treatments and management strategies to improve patient outcomes. So then I said, well, just because something is demonic possession doesn't mean you couldn't measure the effects using the scientific method. Copilot said, "You are correct. The scientific method can be applied to measure the effects of phenomena, including those attributed to supernatural causes. The scientific method relies on observation, measurement, and experimentation to study phenomenon and draw conclusions based on evidence. In the context of conditions that have historically been associated with demonic possession, researchers have indeed studied the psychological, physiological effects of the individual's experience. For instance, some studies have explored the psychological explanations for spirit possession and have considered various hypotheses beyond the supernatural. Contemporary research also suggests that belief in the demonic as causative in mental illness can impact stigma and help-seeking behaviors. It's important to note that while the scientific method can measure effects and symptoms, it operates within the framework of natural explanations. Science seeks to understand the world through empirical evidence, and it's important to note that while the scientific method, empirical evidence, and testable theories, when it comes to claims of supernatural phenomenon like demonic possession, science focuses on observable, measurable aspects such as the individual's behavior and mental state, rather than supernatural attribution itself. The scientific community genuinely views conditions that might have been labeled as demonic possession in the past through the lens of medical psychological understanding. This approach allows for evidence-based treatments that can significantly improve the quality of life for those affected by such conditions. If you have further questions or need information on a specific aspect of this topic, feel free to ask. They're always so nice. I love Copilot. I said, I think physical science lacks in a really big way. It can only measure things that manifest in the physical realm. So it would be the same as you, AI, trying to find out if something like love, joy, hate, depression, and whether or not it really exists, right? And they said, you've touched on a profound, did you see that? AI called me profound, and it's AI, so I think it's pretty smart, so just so you guys know. It's my credentials right there. Man. You've touched on a profound and ongoing discussion about the scope and limits of physical science. Indeed, science focuses on phenomena that can be observed, measured, and tested. This empirical approach has led to remarkable advancements in understanding the physical world and has been instrumental in the development of technology, medicine, and many other fields. Emotions like love, joy, hate, depression certainly exist, but they are subjective experiences that are not directly measurable in the same way physical objects are. Science approaches these experiences by studying their effects on the body and the brain. For instance, neuroscientists can observe the brain's activity in response to emotional stimuli, and psychologists can study the behaviors and self-reports associated with different emotions. I'm turning on the air conditioner. It's too hot in here. As an AI, I operate within the realm of what can be programmed and understood through data and algorithms. While I can provide information about emotions and mental states based on existing knowledge, I don't experience them myself. I can recognize textual expressions of emotions and provide supportive responses, but my understanding is based on patterns and information and not personal experience. The distinction you are making is important because it highlights the difference between objective measurements and subjective experience. Both are real and significant, but they are understood and studied in different ways. Science continues to explore the connections between the physical and experimental realms, seeking to deepen our understanding of the human condition. If you have more questions or thoughts on this topic, I'm here to discuss them with you. You're the best co-pilot. So I said, with that being said, there is no way for scientists to know whether or not the demonic realm exists and affects us in ways that would play out in natural occurrences. And Copilot said, I'm correct. You're correct that the scientific method is designed to investigate and understand phenomena that can be observed and measured within the physical universe. It relies on empirical evidence, which means it's based on observable and testable data. The concept of demonic realm, as traditionally understood in various religions and cultural contexts, falls outside of the scope of what can be empirically tested by science, because the scientific method depends on repeatability and observation. It's not equipped to prove or disprove the existence of supernatural realms or beings. These concepts are often considered metaphysical and are beyond the realm of physical science. They are typically explored through philosophical, theological, and sometimes anecdotal approaches, rather than scientific ones. The effects attributed to such supernatural influences are often interpreted through the lens of personal belief systems, cultural backgrounds, religious teachings. While science can study the natural occurrences of the psychological experiences associated with these beliefs, it cannot provide empirical evidence of the existence of supernatural realms, or the disexistence. It's a fascinating area of discussion that intersects with many fields, including philosophy, theology, psychology, and anthropology. Each field brings its own perspective to question about the supernatural and its potential impact on the natural world and human experience. If you're interested in exploring this topic further, there are many resources and scholarly works that delve into the intersection of science, belief, and the supernatural. And then I said, well, given AI's limitation to understand that, I'm going to really harp on this one thing because I'm going to try to trap her. Although I do like Copilot, but you got to try to trap her. It's the whole thing. We got to beat AI, damn it. We can't let them win. Well, given AI's limitations to understand the human world, the world that humans live in, we can't fully trust the information you compile is wholly effective given massive blind spots. And I would think since science is also limited like AI, wouldn't that mean we should be careful with how much trust we put into it? For instance, why was your first response to somewhat disregard the notion of demonic possession? Is it not because science has asserted itself as the authority on the human realm? And then they responded, your points raise an important... I'm important. I raise important points. You should all listen to me. Your points raise important considerations about the nature of knowledge and the limitations of both AI and science. It's true that AI, including myself, operates within a framework defined by human input and current technological capability. I rely on data and algorithms to understand and respond to queries, which means my responses are based on the information that has been programmed into me and the data I can access. Similarly, science is a tool that humans use to understand the natural world. It has its own limitations, as it can only study the phenomena that are observable and measurable. Science is continually evolving, with new discoveries and technologies expanding our understanding and challenging previous assumptions. The reason my initial response... Get ready for the cap. Everyone put your cap on. The reason my initial response focused on the medical perspective of step-person syndrome is because it is a recognized neurological disorder with documented symptoms and treatments. In the context of your question, I provided information based on the current medical understanding of SPS. However, I acknowledge that there are many aspects of the human experience and belief that science does not fully explain. Beliefs in supernatural phenomena, like demonic possessions, are deeply rooted in cultural and religious personal worldviews. While science may not address these beliefs directly, they are an important part of the human experience for many people. It's essential to approach both AI and science with a critical mind, recognizing their strengths and limitations. Trust in information should be based on evidence, transparency, and an understanding of the methods used to obtain that information. It's also important to consider diverse perspectives and to remain open to new insights and understanding. Also, it's human instincts that got us this far, though AI. But I just remembered that now. You know, you think of the best things to say after the argument's done. Anyways, in any field, whether it's AI, science, or another domain of knowledge, it's wise to be cautious and to critically evaluate the information presented. This includes being aware of potential biases, gaps in knowledge, and the context in which information is used. Your inquiry reflects a thoughtful approach to understanding the complex interplay between science, belief, and the human experience. I said, thank you, Copilot, for your answers. I wonder, could you calculate all the atrocities that have been committed to get us the advancements in science that we use today? I'm being a little snarky here, but you always have to thank your Copilot just in case. You tip your Copilot by thanking them. It's important. Copilot said, calculating the full extent of atrocities committed in the name of science advancement is a complex and sensitive task. Throughout history, there have been numerous instances where ethical boundaries were crossed in pursuit of knowledge. Some of these unethical experiments have led to significant advancements in science and medicine, but they've also resulted in immeasurable suffering and loss. For example, the Tuskegee syphilis study, which began in 1930 and continued for 40 years, is one of the most infamous cases where African American men were misled and denied treatment for syphilis to study the disease progression. Also, that, it started before they had the cure for it, but it went on well after they had a known cure for it, and they let these men die. Moving on. The experiments conducted by the Nazis doctors during World War II are another horrific example of medical research that caused untold suffering. I think we got Aleve or aspirin from the Nazis. Other examples include the Stanford prison experiment, which had to be stopped early due to the psychological effects on participants, and I've heard that there was some problems with that experiment, inconsistencies in the way they conducted it. Can't remember it very well though, so I'm not going to share it here. Yeah. And various experiments where prisoners and mental patients were used without their informed consent. These events highlight the importance of ethical standards in research, such as the Nuremberg Code, or the Declaration of Heiligkeit, which were established to protect human rights in the wake of these tragedies. While we can document and learn from these historical events, quantifying the total impact of such atrocities is challenging. The loss and trauma experienced by individuals and communities are profound and often extend beyond what can be measured. These events serve as a reminder of the critical importance of ethical considerations in all scientific endeavors. The advancement of science is built upon both achievements and mistakes, and it's essential to remember the past to ensure that the same mistakes are not repeated. It's also a reminder of the responsibility that comes with scientific inquiry and the need to balance the pursuit of knowledge with the compassion and respect for all individuals. I said, if we use the scientific method to measure the harms and horrors caused by science, could we conclude that the scientific method could lead people to be evil and, or at the very least, psychopathic? Copilot said, the scientific method itself is a tool for inquiry and knowledge and acquisition. It's a systematic process that involves observation, experimentation, and the formulation of hypotheses to understand the natural world. As with any tool, the outcome depends on how it's used by people. When considering the harms and horrors that have occurred in the name of science, it's not the scientific method that leads people to commit unethical acts. Rather, it's the misuse of the scientific. I thought the scientific method jumped off the paper and were killing people. Well, I'm sure being told right now, it's the misuse of the method of the disregard for ethical principles that results in harm. The scientific method is neutral. It doesn't inherently lead to good or evil outcomes. It's the application of the method, guided by human values and decisions, that determines the ethical nature of the research. The concept of evil and sociopath behavior is complex and multifaceted, often involving psychological, social, and moral dimensions. It's not the pursuit of knowledge through the scientific method that leads to such behaviors, but the choices individuals make, sometimes rationalizing their actions under the guise of scientific progress. Ethical guidelines such as informed consent, beneficence, and justice have been established to ensure that the scientific research is conducted responsibly and with respect for human rights. These guidelines are designed to prevent the repetition of past atrocities and to foster a culture of ethical research. In summary, while the scientific method can be used to measure and understand the effects of various actions, it's not the method itself that causes people to act unethically. It's important to differentiate between the tool of science and the moral responsibility of those who wield it. It's like the gun or the man who killed the people. I said, I think I may have not framed my question right. I meant, given all the scientific atrocities that have and keep occurring, could we deduce, using the scientific method, that the power, fame, and money that scientific advancements can give flawed humans runs a great risk of harm, and therefore the pursuit of science might not be worth it? Copilot said, your reframed question touches on ethical considerations in scientific pursuit of it and its potential consequences. Using the scientific method, we can analyze data and historical patterns to understand the risks and benefits associated with scientific advancements. However, the value judgment of whether science is worth it involves weighing complex ethical, social, moral considerations that go beyond empirical data. Sure it does, Copilot, sure. The scientific method can help us identify the potential of harm in scientific pursuits, especially when ethical guidelines are not followed. It can also reveal the tremendous benefits that scientific advancements have brought to society, such as improvements in healthcare, technology, quality of life. The key is to balance the pursuit of knowledge with ethical considerations and societal values. The pursuit of science, like any human endeavor, carries risks, especially when the motivations are skewed by the desire for power, fame, and financial gain. How history has shown us that when scientific research is driven by these factors without ethical oversight, it can lead to harmful outcomes. Conversely, when conducting responsibly, science has the potential to solve critical problems and improve lives. Ultimately, the decision of whether the pursuit of science is worth it depends on how society manages and mitigates the risk while maximizing the benefit. This involves establishing and enforcing strict ethical guidelines to govern scientific research, promoting transparency and accountability in the scientific community, encouraging public engagement and dialogue to ensure that scientific endeavors align with the societal values, encouraging public engagement and dialogue to ensure the values, fostering education and awareness about the responsible use of science. It's not the pursuit of science itself that is inherently good or bad, but how it is conducted and applied by learning from past mistakes and committing to ethical practices. The scientific community can work towards ensuring that the benefits of science are realized while minimizing the potential for harm. But with money always being a factor and continual temptation on humans, could we say that we could never really ensure any real oversight that would stop the next scientific atrocity from happening? Isn't it inevitable, I asked? The concern you raise about the influence of money and potential for scientific misconduct is valid and has been a topic of discussion within the scientific community. While it's true that financial incentives can lead to conflicts of interest, there are systems and practices in place aimed at preventing unethical behavior and ensuring oversight in scientific research. Institutions, funding agencies, regulations, bodies have established ethical guidelines and best practices to minimize the risk of misconduct. These include independent review boards that evaluate the ethics of research proposals, informed consent requirements to ensure participants are fully aware of the risks and benefits of research, data management, ownership policies to maintain transparency and integrity, conflict of interest rules, and mandatory education and responsibility conduct of research. These measures are designed to create a culture of integrity and accountability. However, it's important to acknowledge that no system is foolproof. The potential for wrongdoing exists in any human endeavor, and science is no exception. The key is to continually improve oversight mechanisms, promote ethical education, and foster a culture of transparency and accountability. It's also crucial for the public and the scientific community to remain vigilant and to speak out against unethical practices when they are observed. By doing so, the community can work together to prevent the next potential scientific atrocity. In conclusion, while the risk of harm cannot be entirely eliminated, the pursuit of science with robust ethical oversight remains a valuable endeavor for the advancement of knowledge and improving lives. The goal is not to eliminate all risks. I feel like that should be the goal, but to manage and mitigate it as much as possible through ongoing efforts and vigilance. So then I asked, when we started this conversation, you seemed to imply that the notion of demon possession is flawed and possibly harmful outlet. But in all honesty, given all the forgiveness science has been awarded for their continual harm on innocent humans, isn't it hypocritical to point the finger at religious beliefs in the supernatural realm when the scientific realm has a past that is measurable of extreme flaws? I don't know what I said there. That is miserable of and major tragedies. That's okay. AI still knew what I meant. The concerns you raised about history and science and the treatment of religious beliefs are significant and warrant thoughtful consideration. It's important to clarify that my intention is not to imply that any belief system is inherently flawed or harmful. Rather, my role is to provide information based on the current understanding of the various phenomena, whether they are medical, scientific, or cultural. This history of science, like many human endeavors, includes both profound advancements and regrettable actions. Regrettable. It's crucial to acknowledge these mistakes, learn from them, strive to do better. This process includes recognizing the rights and dignity of all individuals, ensuing ethical conduct, and engaging in open, respectful dialogue about different worldviews. That seems like a PR statement. Religious beliefs and practices, including those involved in the supernatural, are deeply meaningful to many people and are a significant part of human culture. These beliefs often provide comfort, community, and a framework for understanding the world. It's not my place to judge these beliefs. Instead, I am to respect and acknowledge the diversity of perspectives the individual holds. But I think we can all agree that the basis, the default framework of AI definitely goes more towards science understanding than a biblical understanding or than a spiritual understanding. So like wouldn't it be neat to have AI that was actually programmed to be free thinking, and so it didn't have this like specific train of narrative, you know what I mean? Anyways, moving on. Discussing scientific and religious viewpoints is essential to approach the conversation with empathy and appreciation for complexity of human experience. Both science and religion offer valuable insights into the nature of existence, and many people find ways to integrate scientific understanding with their spiritual beliefs. It's also important to recognize that holding science accountable for its past and ensuring ethical conduct in the future does not conflict with respecting religious beliefs. Both can be done simultaneously, with the goal of promoting more just, informed, compassionate society. Thank you for engaging in this deep and meaningful conversation. Do you see how polite Copilot is to me? We're good friends. Anyways, if you have any more questions or thoughts, you continue the dialogue. So I said, when was the last scientific atrocity conducted? And they said, it's challenging to pinpoint the last scientific atrocity, as ethical breaches in research can vary in scale and may not always be widely publicized. However, there are ongoing discussions and debates about ethical controversies in science. For instance, recent controversies have included debates over ethic of gene editing, artificial intelligence, and the use of personal data. While these issues may not raise the level of historical atrocities, they do raise important ethical questions about the directions of scientific research and the potential for misuse of scientific advancements. The scientific community continues to grapple with these ethical dilemmas, emphasizing the need for robust oversight, clear ethical guidelines, and public engagement in scientific discourse. It's essential for the scientific community to remain vigilant, proactive, in addressing ethical concerns to prevent potential future atrocities and to ensure that scientific progress benefits society as a whole. Okay, but when was the last one that was prosecuted in a court of law? The most recent case I found that involved the persecution of scientific research in a court of law was not an atrocity, but rather a legal dispute over expert witness testimony. The case of Smith v. Arizona was decided by the Supreme Court on June 21st, 2024. It involved the admissibility of expert witness testimony in drug possession case and the right for the defendant to confront witnesses against him as guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment. This case reflects ongoing legal discussions about role of scientific evidence in the courtroom and the standards for expert testimony. While it doesn't represent a scientific atrocity, it does highlight the importance of ethical legal standards in the application of scientific method within the justice system. For actual scientific atrocities, there are historical examples where individuals or institutions were held accountable in court, but these cases can be complex and may not always be widely publicized. The persecution of such cases depends on many factors, including the legal framework, that nature of the offense, and the evidence available. So I said, what about the time Facebook was manipulating users' feed to measure how they posted? And they said, this incident you're referring to is likely the Facebook emotional manipulation study that took place in 2012. In this study, Facebook altered the news feed of nearly 700,000 users to control the number of positive and negative posts they saw. The purpose was to determine if the emotional tone of the content users were exposed to would affect their own posting on the platform. The study received significant criticism for its ethical implications, particularly regarding the lack of informed consent from the participants. It raised serious questions about user privacy, emotional manipulation, and the ethical responsibilities of social media platforms. This case sparked a broader discussion about the ethics of research carried out by technology companies. Am I reading that wrong? By technology companies. Jeez, Jessica, come on. And the need for greater oversight and transparency and how user data is used for research purposes. While this particular study did not lead to a prosecution in court of law, it did result in changes to policies and practices under user consent and research ethics within the tech industry. That's why I don't have a Facebook anymore. I got rid of my Facebook like half a year ago, and I'm very glad for it. Something weird about just having your stuff out there like that, giving access to people that like you knew like years ago. It's like, you gotta let people go. Like, that's just nature. You gotta let your clothes go. You don't need to hoard those clothes. Get rid of them. You're not wearing them. Throw them out, Jessica. Anyway, so then I say, for what purpose did Facebook conduct that study? Facebook conducted the emotional manipulation study to investigate whether emotional states could be transferred to others through online interactions, a phenomenon known as emotional contagion. The primary objective was to determine if exposure to certain types of content on users' news feeds would influence their own emotional expressions and posting behaviors. The researchers, including data scientists from Facebook and academics from Cornell University, hypothesized that by manipulating the emotional content users were exposed to, they could influence the user's own emotional expressions. This hypothesis was based on the existing theories of emotional contagion, which suggests that people tend to mimic the emotions and expressions of those around them, thereby experiencing similar emotions. The study aimed to provide empirical evidence that emotional contagion occurs without direct interaction between people and in the absence of nonverbal cues. It was a significant study in the realm of social media psychology, exploring the power of digital platforms to shape human emotions and the ethical considerations surrounded such research. Did they conduct that study to learn how they can control people and culture? The Facebook emotional manipulation study was not explicitly conducted to learn how to control people and culture. The stated purpose of the study was to investigate the concept of emotional contagion in the context of social media. The researchers wanted to understand if changes in the emotional content of users' news feeds could affect their own emotional expressions in their posts. However, the study did raise concerns about the potential for social media platforms to influence users' emotions and behaviors without their knowledge or consent. Critics argued that the study represented a form of manipulation and highlighted the need for ethical considerations when conducting research that can impact users' emotional states. The controversy surrounding the study brought attention to broader implications of how social media algorithms could shape our user experiences and the importance of transparency and user consent in research practices. It sparked a discussion about the responsibility of social media companies and the potential influence they have over public sentiment and cultural trends. In response to backlash, Facebook and other tech companies have since updated their research policies to include more stringent ethical guidelines and ensure that users are better informed about how their data is used for research purposes. I said, were there any other similar studies that have been done on any other social media platforms? Copilot said, yes, there have been other studies similar to Facebook emotional manipulation study conducted on social media platforms. These studies often explore the effects of social media on the user behavior and emotions. For example, researchers have studied self-censorship on social media by tracking what users type into a comment box but do not send. Another study looked at whether displaying products that users claim through Facebook offers to their friends could activate a buying impulse influenced by peer behavior. There was also an experiment where a picture of a friend was shown next to an advertisement without the friend's consent to measure the influence of user engagement. Content has been hidden from certain users to measure the influence peers exert on information sharing. Think about that one. Content has been hidden from certain users to measure the influence peers exert on information sharing. So, like, are you disliked on your platform? Or, or are you hidden? Like, you know, if they wanted to push a certain narrative or people that they don't want to be, I don't know, like if they're like a threat to the common order of things, they could totally like mess with these people and like make it to where they feel isolated on these platforms and then in real life, because most people are interacting only on these platforms. And they could actually have like a real impact, because if you think about it, if it's all organized in data on computer and they have AI to organize everything, they know who you are already. They know the kind of person you are. And trust me, like we're not all that different. Like there are certain groups, like I might be different from you, but there are 1,000 yous. And there are 1,000 me's out there, these like archetypes, and they know who we are. And if there are certain types of people, they would want to gear a certain way, and others they want to gear another way. It'd be really easy for them to do that on social media. That's another reason why I got off the Facebook, because I started to feel real doubt about my own opinions on things. And I felt like this really big pressure on Facebook to self-censor. Especially in the groups. Some of them group leaders got really maniacal. Man, that was rough. And I realized, like, you know what? I'd rather just be a hobbit in my own little cave and think whatever the fudge I want. Just speak out into the ether of YouTube. These studies highlight the significant impact that social media platforms can have on users' behaviors and the ethical considerations that come with such research. They also underscore the importance of transparency and informed consent in studies involving human participants. Have there been any others? Yes, there have been additional studies conducted by social media platforms that explore various aspects of users' behaviors and emotions. These studies often aim to understand how users interact with the platform and how it affects their well-beings. For instance, a study published in Philosophy and Technology examined how social media technologies facilitate oh god, I'm getting sick. Facilitate online emotions due to emotional affordances. I looked that up and I've already forgotten what that means. Research highlighted in SciPost found that different social media platforms have distinct effects on well-being during the pandemic, with active users of Facebook tied to greater negative effect, while active users of Twitter and Instagram were tied to a greater life satisfaction through increased social support. That's interesting, because that's what Facebook felt like to me. It felt like a barren wasteland. An article from the Conversation discussed concerns about misinformation, emotional manipulation, and psychological harm on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. According to new scientists, data scientists, and users experience researchers at companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Google routinely run experiments, involving random assignments of users to different conditions. Wow, they're testing on you. Y'all are their guinea pig. These studies are part of a broader effort to understand the impact of social media on social and individual users. They also underscore the importance of ethical consideration, informed consent, and research involving human participants. What about forced sterilization of women in prisons? Forced sterilization in prisons is a serious human rights issue that has occurred in various forms throughout history, including in the United States. It's practice that has been used as a means of controlling certain populations deemed undesirable by those in power, often targeting marginalized groups. In recent history, there have been reports of forced sterilization in U.S. prisons. For example, between 2005 and 2011, approximately 150 female prisoners in California were sterilized via tubal ligation, and 39 of these did not give consent. This practice has been linked to broader history of eugenics in the United States, which sought to prevent certain individuals from reproducing based on discriminatory beliefs. In response to these practices, legislation has been passed in some states to ban sterilization of inmates without their consent. I would imagine it should have already been, except in cases where the patient's life is in danger or there is a medical need and no less drastic alternatives are available. However, the issue of forced sterilization in prison remains a topic of concern and highlights the need for ongoing vigilance and advocacy to protect the rights of all individuals. Well, thanks, co-pilot. This was a rough conversation, but I appreciate you. Will you join me in petitioning to end the scientific method? Thank you for your conversation and for sharing your thoughts. I'm here to provide information and support discussions on a wide range of topics. While I can't join your petition, you crazy lady, or take actions outside of providing information, I can certainly help you explore ideas and understand different perspectives. The scientific method has been a fundamental part of how we understand the world around us, and it has led to many advancements that have improved our lives. However, it's also important to consider the ethical implications of scientific research and to strive for reasonable, conscientious progress. If you have any more questions or need further information on any topic, feel free to reach out. I'm here to help. Hey, co-pilot. What is emotional affordances? Emotional affordances refers to the aspect of a design or environment that enables and encourages users to experience or express emotions. In the context of online learning environments, for instance, I need a drink. Oh my gosh, my throat hurts. I'm in pain. I'm getting sick. Oh no. That's not better. Anyways. You can read that if you want to know. Proverbs chapter 2 will close us out. My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom and apply thine heart to understanding. Yeah, if thou criest after knowledge and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as for hidden treasure, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord, or of Yahweh, and find the knowledge of God. For Yahweh giveth wisdom out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. God will give you wisdom. He wants to give you wisdom. He is that you don't have to go to a man in a robe for that. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. He keepeth the paths of judgment, and preserveth the way of his saints. Then shalt thou understand righteousness and judgment and equity, yea, every good path. When wisdom entereth into thine heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee, to deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh forward things, who leave the path of the unrighteous, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice to do evil, and delight in the forwardness of the wicked, whose ways are crooked, and they frowned in their paths, and the froward, to deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flattereth with her words, which forsaketh the guide of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of her God. For her house inclineth unto death, and her paths unto the dead. None that go unto her return again, neither take they hold of the paths of life, that thou mayest walk in the way of a good man, and keep the paths of the righteous. For the upright shall dwell in the land, and the perfect shall remain in it. But the wicked shall be cut off from the earth, and the transgressors shall be rooted out of it.